Archibald and Amelia have been best friends since they were little kids.
No secret.
As they grow older, Archibald falls in love with her.
Love, you see...
But he's too scared to say anything because he doesn't want to ruin their friendship. However, as they start the final year of high school, Archibald finally decides to tell her.
Phase 1. Secure her evening.
But before he can, a new student named Billy arrives.
Hey everyone, Billy Walsh.
And Amelia gets attracted to him.
He's so my type.
Many years earlier, Archibald and Amelia are delivered as babies in the same hospital, but they eventually get switched and given to different parents. Luckily, the hospital quickly realizes their mistake, and after the babies are switched back, their parents become best friends. Following this, Archibald and Amelia get to spend so much time together, and this makes them best friends who promise to never keep secrets from each other. While they both honor their pact quite well in their early years as best friends, Archibald develops feelings for Amelia. But he never gets the chance to tell her. Unfortunately, it becomes even harder for him to confess his feelings when Amelia's mom, Jules, eventually falls sick. One day, while Amelia visits her mom in the hospital, Jules gives her a bracelet and tells her to always follow her heart because it can rarely lead her the wrong way. A few days later, Jules dies, but Archibald remains by Amelia's side to always console her and make her feel happy. Despite still being in love with Amelia, Archibald never finds the right time to tell her how he feels.
Love.
Many years later, as they then start the final year of high school, Archibald devises a plan to create the best atmosphere to finally tell Amelia what he has always wanted to tell her since they were little. As they arrive at school together to begin their final term, Amelia tells Archibald that she's sure the year will be great for them, but he doesn't look convinced. Since it's the term they'll be having a mega ball for their graduation, Amelia jokingly asks Archibald who he'll be taking as his date, but he says he'd rather stay at home and watch horror movies. Amelia agrees with his response because it's also what she plans to do since she knows she might not get a date before the ball.
6 weeks till the ball.
As they're then about to enter the school, a boy named Billy arrives on his bike. Amelia and most of the other students look quite interested in the new boy, but Archibald doesn't get it. As he also notices that Amelia has a huge crush on Billy, Archibald looks pissed because it could ruin his entire plan of confessing his feelings to her. After a while, all the students are summoned to the hall by the school principal, who introduces Billy to them. Billy is quite happy to be in the school, and during his speech, he tells his new classmates that he has just moved to England because his dad is there on a business trip. As he continues to talk, Amelia and some other girls keep admiring Billy, but this increasingly gets Archibald angry.
Thank you for such a warm welcome.
Later that day, during lunch, Archibald decides to kickstart the first phase of his plan, which is to ask Amelia to follow him to watch their favorite movie at a cinema. Before he actually asks her, a bully named Amber throws Amelia's food to the ground while making fun of her. Even though Amelia looks pissed, Archibald quickly calms her down. He then asks if she'd like to come with him to the cinema, but before she can accept his offer, Billy enters the dining hall. Amelia is again attracted to him, and as she talks about how cool Billy looks, Archibald doesn't look interested. To make him even more pissed, Billy appears to be a kind person who prefers to sit alone rather than mingle with the bullies on the swim team. Since Amelia seems to like this, Archibald realizes that he needs to act fast.
And now he's pretending to read. Give me a break.
That night, when he then takes Amelia to the cinema, she sees that they're the only ones inside the theater. Amelia is shocked by this, but Archibald pretends not to know what's happening, even though he's the one who booked the entire hall and paid a huge amount of money to secure the place just for him and his best friend. As they then start watching the movie together, they share their popcorn and seem to be having a nice time, with both of them also farting and talking about the movie, which they've seen so many times. After the movie ends, Archibald finally decides to confess his love for Amelia, but he sounds quite nervous. She notices this, but before he can say anything, Amelia says that there's something she'd also like to tell him. He then tells her to go first, and as she starts talking about how she feels weird regarding what she wants to say, Archibald starts to wonder if she also wants to confess her feelings. However, when she finally talks, Amelia says she thinks she's in love with Billy. Archibald slips up and says he loves her too, but he manages to handle the situation quite well by pretending he meant to say something else. Despite this, he doesn't sound happy about Amelia's confession because it has only been 10 hours since she met Billy. Amelia notices that Archibald is not happy with her love interest, and she sounds hurt. Since he wants to show that he supports her, Archibald pretends to be happy with what she wants, but he still can't seem to hide how he really thinks of Billy. Amelia doesn't talk much after this, but as she then asks what he wanted to say, Archibald tells her something else about his parents.
I love Billy Walsh.
I love you too.
The next day, Amelia starts following Billy on social media, and as she also admires him in class, Archibald looks disgusted. She eventually falls from her chair while looking happy to see that Billy followed her back, but all her classmates laugh at her. Following this, Archibald decides to start working out so he can gain some muscle like Billy. However, he eventually gives up when this doesn't change anything in how Amelia looks at him.
Perhaps we should all just go and have one big ironic threesome.
A few days later, Archibald's parents, George and Lily, invite Amelia's dad, Rupert, for dinner at their house. After dinner, George and Lily advise Rupert to start dating again. He eventually says he has someone named Maggie already in mind, so George and Lily offer to share the secret of their happy relationship with him. As Rupert wonders what they're talking about, the couple mentions that they had to seek the services of a love doctor who helped them fix their marriage when they noticed that they were falling apart.
The love doctor.
Amelia hears this, and the next day in school, she begs Archibald to help her get the love doctor's number from his parents so she can contact him to help her win Billy's heart. Archibald doesn't like this idea, and he says he won't help her get the number because he believes it's a waste of time. Amelia still continues to beg him, and as they head for their next class, she and Archibald see Amber flirting with Billy. Amelia looks disappointed, so she begs Archibald to help her with the love doctor's number before she loses Billy to Amber. Archibald doesn't seem to get why she's suddenly head over heels for Billy, but Amelia finally mentions that she just wants to have a boyfriend before she graduates high school. She also adds that she's hoping Billy will ask her to be his date to the ball. Archibald sounds disappointed to hear this, and while trying to make Amelia give up her attempt to date Billy, he tells her that she's just not in the same league as the new boy. Amelia feels hurt to hear her best friend say this, so she leaves him and walks away. She also avoids him in school, and instead of walking together like they used to, Archibald spends the next few days alone. Following this, he then decides to help Amelia get the love doctor's number. The next day, after he gets the number, Archibald gives it to Amelia, and she thanks him for finally helping her. Later that day in school, Archibald walks in on the drama club's performance of Romeo and Juliet. As he hears the teacher talking about how the actor meant to play Romeo can be replaced, he suddenly realizes that he made a mistake by giving Amelia the love doctor's real number and encouraging her to date Billy. He then buys a new phone and decides to act as the love doctor so he can sabotage Amelia's efforts to win Billy's heart. After using a digital aging app to look older, Archibald realizes that he can just keep pretending to be the love doctor so he can still improve his chances of dating Amelia. The next day, he then writes his new number and places it inside Amelia's locker after removing the real love doctor's number from her jacket. Amelia sees him while he's opening her locker, but Archibald quickly pretends like he is putting a book inside there.
Aww.
Later that night, Amelia calls the number, and Archibald picks up the phone even though his best friend has no idea he's the one she's talking to. He then tells Amelia about how love is a serious thing that shouldn't be toyed with. As she promises to do everything he advises, Archibald tells Amelia to talk about Billy. While talking about him, she adds that she's currently having to face some competition from Amber. Archibald then tells Amelia to describe Amber, and as she says the girl has huge eyebrows, he tells her that it's what she must also do to make Billy notice her. The next day at school, Amelia fixes huge eyebrows, but she ends up looking so weird that her classmates laugh at her. As someone ends up spilling a cup of juice on her face, the eyebrows get even worse, and Amelia feels embarrassed because Billy can also see how bad her face looks. That night, Amelia calls the love doctor again, but this time, she accuses him of making her look weird in front of Billy. Archibald then says it's a good thing, and as Amelia wonders what he means, he mentions that Billy has already noticed her for the first time. Amelia takes this as a positive sign, so she follows the love doctor's advice to make sure Billy continues to notice her. In school the next day, Amelia desperately tries to make Billy notice her, and even though he does, he also can't seem to understand why she's carrying a lot of books or throwing pieces of paper at him. Later that day, Amelia remembers the love doctor telling her to make Billy jealous, but in an attempt to do that, she bumps her head against a locker. Billy just walks past her without saying a word, and Amelia still feels embarrassed. As she then sits in the toilet to deal with the pain, Amber and one of her friends walk in. They then start talking about how Amelia has been acting weird. Amber also mentions that she's planning on going to Billy's house soon, so she can get him to make their relationship official. Amelia hears this, and after Amber walks out, she comes up with a plan to get Billy. The next day, Archibald arrives at Amelia's house to pick her up so they can head to school together. While he's looking happy because his plans to sabotage Amelia have been working so far, she suddenly walks out of her house looking differently. It then turns out that Amelia has decided to do a full makeover to look as classy as Amber so she can increase her chances of getting Billy to like her. Archibald is shocked by this, but Amelia seems quite optimistic that her new plan will work. When she then arrives at school, everyone seems impressed by her new look, and she also enjoys the attention. As she soon sees Billy, she tries to make him find her attractive, but her attempt fails when the principal unknowingly hits her with his car. Everyone laughs at Amelia again, and this makes her feel embarrassed. However, Billy quickly runs to help her, and this makes her happy. Before they can say anything to each other, Archibald sees them and quickly runs to help Amelia so that Billy will leave her alone. Later that day, during lunch, Billy stares at Amelia while taking his food, but she still feels embarrassed about what happened earlier. Just then, Amber approaches Amelia and starts insulting her for trying to compete with her. Amelia remains silent because she doesn't know what to say, but Archibald suddenly defends her and insults Amber, who is shocked by this. Archibald's insults appear to be more funny, and as everyone laughs at Amber, she gets angry and pours a glass of milkshake on Amelia. Archibald then immediately stands up and pastes some mashed potatoes on Amber's face. Since he doesn't want to make Amelia too embarrassed, he also pours his food on himself. Everyone seems to enjoy this, but as Amber seems angry, Archibald and Amelia leave the hall. When they get outside, they both laugh about what happened, and Amelia also tells Archibald that no one has ever stood up for her like that. Archibald likes this, and he suddenly thinks about telling how he really feels. Before he can say anything, though, Billy shows up and tells Amelia that he's sorry for what happened. He also says he finds her attractive and would like to have dinner with her. Amelia instantly agrees, but Archibald feels really sad and pissed because his chances of ever dating his best friend are now growing slimmer. That night, Amelia dresses up for the date and calls the love doctor for some advice. Unfortunately, Archibald gives her bad advice to make sure she's very mean to Billy.
I'll do whatever you say.
During their date, Amelia does as she's told, and she sounds quite rude to Billy. She even disrespects him by flirting with the waiter, after which she drinks a lot of beer. Billy eventually gets fed up and leaves her in the restaurant. Amelia is disappointed by this, but as she sits outside, he suddenly returns and says he thought she was different from other girls. He also says he can't believe how people always act differently toward him because they are quick to judge him as someone who is a bad guy. Amelia tries to explain that she didn't mean to be rude, but Billy eventually leaves her again. The next day at school, Amelia decides to apologize, but instead of going straight to Billy, she uses the school's intercoms to say embarrassing things about herself so he can know that she didn't mean to insult him so much during their date.
Hello, everyone.
All the students start recording this and making fun of Amelia, but she doesn't seem to care because she's more concerned about getting Billy to forgive her. Just then, Archibald realizes that he has gone a bit too far with the love doctor thing. Following this, he uses a fire extinguisher to chase all the students away from where Amelia is. When they're all gone, Archibald then takes Billy to meet Amelia, after which he walks away. Amelia is not aware of what Archibald did, but as she sees Billy there, she looks happy. As this then marks the start of their relationship, Amelia and Billy start spending more time together. She even starts sitting with Billy, but Archibald doesn't seem to care because he has now accepted his fate that he will never date Amelia. Days later, Archibald and Amelia continue to grow apart while she spends more time with Billy. He eventually takes her to the cinema to watch a movie, but things don't start off well, as he says he's not a fan of popcorn and chocolate. She also sleeps off during the movie because she's not really a fan of action movies. But when Billy wakes her up, she farts while watching a scary scene. Billy looks disgusted by this, and Amelia feels really embarrassed because she never knew he wouldn't be cool with it, since Archibald never had problems with it. Later that night, when she returns home, Amelia takes a look at old pictures of her and Archibald when they were young. As she then realizes that she actually misses him, she calls the love doctor, but Archibald doesn't pick up the phone. The next day, the students take their final exam, and they start preparing for the ball. In the night, while Amelia is looking at the stars in the sky, her dad comes over to sit next to her. She then asks how he knew that Jules was the one he wanted to marry. Rupert mentions that Jules was his best friend, and that it was from the first time they met that he fell in love with her. He then advises Amelia not to think too loudly, because she might not hear the answer she wants.
It just made perfect sense.
The next day, after Maggie helps Amelia with her clothes for the ball, she checks a box filled with her mom's old stuff. She then sees the bracelet her mom gave her, and this makes her remember what Jules said about following her heart. After a while, Billy arrives at the house to pick up Amelia for the ball, but she tells Maggie that she no longer wants to go with him. As she mentions that she needs to leave the house, Maggie helps her sneak out so she can ride her bicycle to Archibald's house. She eventually falls from her bike and tears her dress, but shortly after, she reaches Archibald's house. When she enters his room, she tells him to change his clothes so they can leave for the ball, but he looks confused. As he then mentions that she can't just come into his room and tell him to go to the ball after spending days not speaking to him, Amelia confesses that she loves him. Archibald doesn't know if she's joking, but she says he's the one she truly loves and that she'll like to go to the ball with him as her date. Archibald is incredibly happy about this, and he says he has always felt the same way about her.
I love you.
Following this, he then goes to wear his clothes. Archibald also gets his driver, William, to help Amelia fix her dress. After he's done, Amelia sits down and texts the love doctor about her newly found love interest. However, as she sends the message, she hears a phone beeping inside the room. She then continues sending the messages until she finds the phone and discovers that Archibald was actually the one pretending to be the love doctor. Since he also made her embarrass herself a couple of times, she looks quite sad and disappointed. When he then shows up, she confronts him about the phone, but he has nothing to say. Amelia immediately leaves the house and William takes her to the ball alone. There, she meets Billy talking to Amber, but instead of getting jealous, she only compliments Amber's dress. She then says she'd like to speak to Billy, and as Amber walks away, she says sorry for leaving the house without him. She also mentions that she doesn't think she loves him enough to be in a relationship with him. Billy doesn't get angry, and he says he'd be happy to remain friends with Amelia. She's happy about this, but as Billy asks who her lucky guy is, Amelia says she's just going to be by herself for a while.
I think it's gonna be me, myself, and Millie for a while.
Shortly after, Archibald drives one of his dad's cars to school. He drives quite fast to get there, but before he enters the ballroom, a group of bullies led by a guy named Tony, who is part of Billy's swim team, attacks him. After tying Archibald upside down on a pole, Tony goes to tell Billy that he has handled his rival for him. Billy doesn't understand this because he didn't tell anyone to help him do anything, so he just goes outside and finds Archibald tied up. Even though he's there to help, Archibald tells Billy that he's fine without the new boy's help. However, Billy still unties him, after which he tells Archibald to go after Amelia. Archibald then immediately runs into the ballroom, looking tattered. Since he wants to apologize to Amelia publicly, he jumps on stage to disrupt the singer's performance. Everyone looks shocked by this, but Archibald tells the singer to give him the microphone. The singer refuses to do this, but after he says it's about a girl, she finally releases the microphone to him. Amelia looks shocked to see him on stage, but before he starts talking, someone throws a cake on his face. Despite this, he then starts his speech by talking about stars
I've been fascinated by the night sky.
and how special they are. He also makes references to different stars while talking about how Billy and some of his other classmates are special. Finally, he talks about how he's a singular star who needs a primary star to shine. As he refers to Amelia as his primary star, he says sorry for everything he did to make her feel hurt. He also says he loves her more than anything in the world. Following this, Amelia accepts his apology, and all the students cheer for them, after which they all continue dancing.
'Cause this ain't no John Hughes.